we should be taking much tougher action on Iran. It's another one. It's part of this axis of authoritarian states, which China seems to be pulling the strings over, which supports Russia.
An activist who's on hunger strike currently for 64 days wants the British government to prescribe or designate a terrorist organisation, the IRGC, the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Do you think they should be prescribed?
I think they should have been prescribed years ago. I do not understand, yet again, this is rather similar to the China problem, what the government thinks they're doing. They are an abusive, disgusting organisation. And I have to say, Omid Djalili, one of our great comedians, but also his knowledge of this area is absolutely incredible. And I have to say, we should have banned them. We should be taking much tougher action on Iran. It's another one. It's part of this axis of authoritarian states, which China seems to be pulling the strings over, which supports Russia. You know, they were sending drones to Russia to drop munitions on top of peaceful Ukrainians, not just their armed forces. I've been out there. It's devastating what they've been up to. No question at all. The government has got to be much, much tougher on these regimes. It's quite unacceptable. So for Iranians' sakes and ours, they should have been banned years ago, ostracized, got rid of.
That's my interview over. Thank you.
Sir Iain Duncan-Smith, thank you.
Well, you're there, Omid Djalili. Good to hear that from Iain Duncan-Smith, I guess, because that's the argument you want to make, isn't it?
It is. I think what Ian's really hit the nail on the head. And I think that there's a difference between sanctioning individuals in an organization and actually prescribing an organization officially on the terrorist list. We have the IRGC, the Islamic Republican Guard Corps. The name Iran is not even in there. They're there to protect the regime. They have been killing, raping, embezzling. They've been drug smuggling, all in the name of Islam, would you believe, which is so offensive to ordinary Iranians and Muslims everywhere. And the difference between sanctioning them and sanctions is interesting. For years, we've been sanctioning Iran, expecting behavioral change. And the thing is, they haven't changed. So, you know, when the government sanctions a couple of individuals, I'm sorry, it's a bit like a bunch of zombies attacking you. And you politely ask them, have you considered a plant-based diet or a vegan diet? You know, they're not going to change. But if you put them on the terrorist list, and by the way, they fund a lot of terrorist organizations like Hezbollah. It's actually IRGC are the center of everything. Once you put them on the terrorist list, it sets a whole process where they become financially isolated. Countries who want to deal with Iran, like India and China, who have their own issues, as Iain very eloquently mentioned, they probably wouldn't want to deal with Iran. They probably, with Brexit Britain, they'd probably deal with Britain. So Britain has a real chance as a sovereign state, aside from Europe. If we prescribe them on the terrorist list, then it forces Europe to do the same, then the rest of the world. So we can really use our Brexit status here to do some real good in the world. He was basically a journalist who had enough when the Metropolitan Police suggested Iran International, which is basically an anti-regime a press outlet. The Metropolitan Police told them that they could no longer protect them because there are threats to kill journalists. So rather than stand up to the terrorists, they asked Iran International to leave Britain and go and set up in Washington. And that shocked a lot of us. It shocked a lot of British people saying, why are we giving in to these people? So Vahid Beheshti was a journalist who then said, okay, I'm going to go on hunger strike. I'm going to position myself at the Foreign Office because they're the people who have some kind of power. And I'm so glad that he's had a lot of support, especially from people within the government, people like Alicia Kearns, Lord Pollock. Alicia Kearns is the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee. She's been tremendously supportive, has even gone to speak to him and said, look, why don't you come in, you can take a shower. And so recently 125 MPs and members of the House of Lords have signed this thing, just as Iain Duncan-Smith has just said, that they should have been prescribed a long time ago. The reason why they haven't is very difficult to understand or even know what the truth is, because the word was that the Americans are doing some hostage exchanges and they've asked Britain not to get involved, but the Americans have vehemently denied that. So we don't really know, we don't really understand, but all we know, there is will and there is a lot of support for Vahid Beheshti. He's now in a wheelchair. There's a big rally on Saturday happening in his name. He can't speak, so there's some very big, high-profile speakers are going to be there. And actually, interestingly enough, there's an aid. Sadiq Khan has got this aid thing for Muslims to come to Trafalgar Square down the road. So we're hoping that a lot of those people will come and join.
Well, listen,
they'll come and join the rally as well.
Well, listen.